It's pretty cold out. The traffic is a little iffy, but I'm glad everybody got here safe. To start us off, right, I would like to call up Mother Kennedy for our prayer.
Good evening, Huddle. How is everybody? All right, good. I'd like to see the hands up. Let me just one diversion a minute. When we pray, we're taught, because we brought here from 1619, pray with your head down and your hands together like this. And then when you open them up, they done stole everything. In the Ethiopian tradition, we always raise our head and raise our hands up because we're looking for our help to come down from above. So in that context, when y'all see me, I'm in different places, or everybody in the churches, they say, put your head down. I got my hands up, raised up. All right, here we go. Mother God, the Father, Mother God of the universe, we thank you right now for life, for health, and strength. We ask you to bless our leader, Reverend Al Sharpton. We ask you to bless National Action Network. We ask you right now to bless the youth, bless the huddle. And God, we ask you right now to be the doctor in the hospital. We ask you to send your healing spirit to Mo. We ask you to send your healing spirit to Sister Kathy. And we know that you are the doctor that has never lost a case. So therefore, God, in the name of Jesus, we place them in your hands. We ask you to bless us tonight as we get ready for this holiday season. Let us not lose sight on who we are and where we are going and where we are coming from. And in the year to come, we ask you to help us to be strong and to uphold and to carry on. These and other blessings we ask in the name of the Mother, Father, and Jesus' name. All in agreement. Ashe. Ashe. Amen. Amen. And so it shall be.
Thank you, Mother Kennedy. Now, I will be doing your scripture for today. Esther 4:12 through 14, King James Version. And they told to Mordecai Esther's words. Then Mordecai commanded to answer Esther, think not with thyself that thou shalt escape in the king's house more than all the Jews. For if thou altogether holdest thy peace at this time, then shall their enlargement and deliverance arise to the Jews from another place, but thou and thy father's house shall be destroyed. And who knoweth whether thou art come to the kingdom for such a time as this? Now, I would like to call up our Huddle founder and director, Ashley Sharpton, for our announcements and action alerts.
Thank you, Giselle. Happy Huddle Monday, everybody. Thank you again for coming out in this freezing weather. Okay, so I'll be before you for a little while longer today. Usually I'm brief, I come and speak and move to the side, but a few of our advisors are coming late from the corporate office, so I'm on double duty. Okay, who is Congressman Hakeem Jeffries? Why is he relevant? Raise your hand. Okay.
He's the new head of the Democratic Party in the House of Representatives.
Right.
And the first black man to do that.
All right, let's clap that up. Good answer. All right, so we're starting off. I'm reading the action alerts. And at the end of the action alerts, we're going to talk about Loudmouth, because it's Loudmouth Week, and Loudmouth will be in theaters all over the nation this Friday. Let's clap that up. So, Gino, as I'm talking, make sure you get ready, because as soon as we finish, we're going to play the trailer. It's not coming? Okay, well, maybe not. Maybe we're not. But we're going to keep playing with it until we can get it to come forth. So we're kicking off, congratulations to Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. Reverend Al Sharpton and Nan extend heartfelt congratulations to U.S. Rep. Hakeem Jeffries on being elected leader of the House Democrats in Congress. Congressman Jeffries discussed the new leadership post on Reverend Sharpton's nationally syndicated radio show and will speak at Nan's House of Justice this coming Saturday. So make sure you're here. Make sure you're here early because it's probably going to be packed and you'll need a seat. He's a committed member of the National Action Network for more than a decade. He hails from Brooklyn, Brooklyn born, Harlem bred. Congressman Jeffries has worked closely with Reverend Sharpton on a host of civil rights issues across the years. Another barrier to equal representation has come down. Next year, Democrats will enter the House chamber led by a black representative for the first time, said Reverend Sharpton. This has been a long overdue moment in America, more than 150 years after Joseph Rainey became the first black American to serve in the House. Quote, I think today of one of my mentors, Brooklyn's own Shirley Chisholm, let's clap her up, who over 50 years ago became the first black woman elected to the House. Reverend Sharpton said after news broke that Congressman Jeffries made history to become the first black to hold the post. She fought to make sure black voices didn't only have a seat at the table, but that America listened when they spoke. They and those who came in between laid the groundwork so that today we can call Hakeem Jeffries the House Minority Leader. Added Reverend Sharpton, Rep. Jeffries has been our ally in government who appreciates that legislation is the true pathway to change. Even with a GOP-led House, we are confident he will not give up on the John Lewis Voting Rights Act or the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. In turn, we will not give up that there is more diversity and inclusion in House leadership. Let's again, congratulations, Rep. Jeffries, and we will see you Saturday, Lord willing. All right, Loudmouth continues to make a roar. The documentary that chronicles Reverend Al Sharpton's activism makes its theatrical release on December 9th in over a dozen cities, including New York, Atlanta, Chicago, Detroit, Houston, Miami, and more. And it tells the story of Reverend Sharpton's career as an activist. Who here has already seen the documentary film? Okay, that's not enough. So a lot of y'all, we going to the movies. We all going to the movies, all right? So throughout the film, it examines his key moments in Reverend Sharpton's life, from the 1980s to the national response to the murder of George Floyd in 2020, which most of us have experienced because we were outside on the front lines with him at some time during that time period. Take a look here. You can visit nationalactionnetwork.net. Again, that's nationalactionnetwork.net for those who are watching online to see where the documentary will be showing and to see different times and exactly which theaters that you can visit. And we are very excited about that. Congratulations to you, Reverend, and you keep up the fight. All right, everybody say Georgia. Georgia. All eyes on Georgia. Don't forget to vote. For all those who are watching, our Georgia viewers, I know for Levy, you're watching, Morehouse is watching. If you're a Georgia resident, don't forget to vote in the December 6th runoff election. That is when? Tomorrow? Right, tomorrow. We've been doing a lot of work in our Atlanta, it's a few Georgia chapters in there in Georgia on the ground, led by Ron Saylor, on the ground. He's our chapter leader of NAN in Atlanta. But who knows who the Senate runoff is between? Just shout it out. Shout it out. And the werewolf. Warnock and the werewolf, right. So we're not going to tell you who to vote for, but Warnock and the werewolf. So make sure Warnock, all right, or the werewolf. I'll read this as it's written, though. If you're a Georgia resident, don't forget to vote in the December 6th runoff election between Senator Raphael Warnock and his challenger, Herschel Walker, for the U.S. Senate. NAN will be closely monitoring the election results, of course, and if you need more information on where to vote, please visit the nationalactionnetwork.net, or you can call right here, the House of Justice. Save the date. Does anybody know the convention dates for 2023? April. Gina? Oh, almost. Well, I think you're right. I think this may be wrong. This is wrong. I think that's right. That's right. Here it says April 5th to the 9th, but it's 12th to the 15th. So please save the date, April 12th to the 15th, 2023. We will be back at the Sheraton Hotel for our national convention. And of course, the last day is the 15th, is Youth Day, so make sure you bring your young people out, bring your ideas, talk to the New York City chapter leadership, make sure they know what you want to hear, make sure they reflect that, and when we choose to do the panels, and we choose the speakers, the plenaries, that what you want is basically reflected in the program, all right? All right. I'm almost done. All right, that is the action alerts, and those are written by Dr. Jamal Watson. Salute to you, Dr. Jamal Watson, every week for your diligence. All right, now some Black history. Maybe some of you know some of the history. Let's see. Anybody know who Salem Poor is? All right, We're starting with December 5th. So December 5th, 1775, a memorial was dedicated to Salem Poor in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Poor was a slave who had brought his freedom and became a hero fighting in the American Revolutionary War for independence from England. Anybody know who Phyllis Wheatley is? Mother Kennedy? Poet. All right, good job. Poet. And on December 5th, 1784, the amazing poet Phyllis Wheatley died in Boston, Massachusetts. Wheatley was kidnapped in Africa at age 7 and sold to a prosperous Boston family, which placed a high value on education. By age 12, she was reading Greek and Latin classics. In the 1770s, she became a sensation in the city because of her amazing ability to write poetry. A London company published her first book of poetry. Sadly, she died in poverty before she could find a publisher for her second book. Let's say, rest in peace, Phyllis Wheatley. Rest in peace? Phyllis Wheatley. December 5th, 1870. Anybody know William Bill Pickett? All right. Mother Kennedy? We have a All right now. You know your history. All right now. December 5th, 1870. Legendary black cowboy William Bill Pickett was born in Travis County, Texas. Standing only 5'7" and weighing 145 pounds, he was considered one of the toughest men ever to be called a cowboy. He became famous in the Miller Brothers 101 Ranch Wild West shows, where he performed daredevil feats and invented the rodeo sport of bulldogging. Let's say, remember William Bill Pickett. Remember? William Bill Pickett. Yes.
One thing, they did have a television show earlier, and mostly all of the black rodeo riders were black. But
Copy that.
television, they were depicted as white people. Especially Hopalong Cassidy.
All right, the Did You Know remix. All right now. You're going to give us the Black History Fact next week, please. All right. Anybody heard of James Cleveland? All right, so the king of gospel, Reverend James Cleveland, was born in Chicago, Illinois on December 5th, 1932. Almost done. Anybody heard of Little Richard? All right. Everybody, that was a little more resounding. December 5th, 1932, the flamboyant singer and performer Little Richard was born and raised in Macon, Georgia. He became one of the founding fathers of rock and roll, and his dynamic stage performance and homosexuality often landed him in controversy at the time, but he remained a major force in the music field. Anybody heard of the Montgomery bus boycott? All right, that was a test. Everybody should have said yes. Right. In 1955, on December 5th today, the historic bus boycott began in Montgomery, Alabama. The black boycott of city buses was set in motion when civil rights heroine Rosa Parks refused to surrender her seat on the bus to a white man. The law at that time required her to give up the seat. A young minister named Martin Luther King Jr. was called upon to lead the boycott, launching his career as the national civil rights leader. Let's remember Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King Jr. today and every day. All right. Also in 1957, today, which is December 5th, New York became the first city to pass a law banning racial or religious discrimination in housing with the Fair Housing Practices Law. All right, and last but not least, tomorrow, which is December 6th, 1849, anybody know who Harriet Tubman is? Yes. All right, that was good. All right, that was in unison. 1849, Harriet Ross Tubman escaped slavery in Maryland, but she became perhaps the greatest conductor on the Underground Railroad, returning to the South 19 times and helping an estimated 300 slaves escape. Despite a serious head injury received from an angry slave master when she refused to beat another slave, Tubman was one of the black America's greatest examples of courage and determination. During the Civil War, she also spied on the South and relayed the information to the Northern generals. She will always be one of my personal heroes, honestly, since I was a little girl, for Harriet Tubman. So let's remember and may she rest in peace to Harriet Tubman. And that is the end of the Black History Facts. And Kitty's birthday is Saturday. She's not Black History yet, but she will make Black History. So let's say Kitty and happy birthday to her. Everybody, that is Kitty right here. All right, I'm turning it back over, Giselle. On Saturday? Oh, same day.
Good evening, everyone. As you've heard announced, December 9th, this Friday, is the premiere of the screening of Loudmouth. We have available seats at the 4 p.m. screening at Magic Johnson. We also have seats available at Union Square at 5:40 p.m. So if you are interested in seeing the documentary at either location, I will leave a sheet taped to the counter. Please legibly write your name, telephone number, and email address down so that we can account for you there. Okay? And it'll be a blank list, and it'll have the theater's name at the top. Just leave your name and information, and I'll call you tomorrow afternoon regarding ticket pickup. Thank you.
Thank you, Katrina. So now I'd like to call up Arnold Penix for our Artivism segment. Clap it up for Arnold Penix. Loudmouth.
Okay, this is what we're gonna do, y'all. We got brand new carpet here. Let's clap it up for our new carpet, right? Woo! It ain't the red carpet, but we're gonna walk this carpet just like we're gonna walk it for Loudmouth, okay? So line up right here on the side here, all my Loudmouths. Give me 4 of you. 4, come on, kids. Come on, kids. You gonna walk, go over here, get over here, get over here. Move it. To the side, move it. You're gonna walk the House of Justice carpet with the Loudmouth poster. Okay, this is what you're gonna do. I need some adult Loudmouths. Come on up here. Who can walk? Come on up here. Gina, get up here. Get up. And you two telling everybody to get up. You going over there. Come on, host. Come on, walk the Loudmouth carpet. We got 4. That's all I need. Now this is what y'all gonna do. Okay? You're going to walk with the poster one at a time. Now, Junior, you're going to have to show us how to walk the carpet. You're going to come up on the stage. The photo, I need some photographers. Who can be photographer? Come on, be a photographer. Come on down and be a photographer. You be the photographer. Come on, be a photographer. Just sit down. Just pretend you got a photographer. No. Okay, you can be a photographer. Okay, come on. All right. No. I want you to, okay, you can be a photographer. Come on, actually be a photographer. Please, you got the camera. Okay, and this ain't Hollywood, this is Harlemwood, okay? Harlemwood. And we're gonna walk the House of Justice carpet. So you're gonna walk up on the stage, Gina, and then you're gonna walk and take a pose in front of the white screen there. That's our backdrop. And then you're gonna walk back off and give the poster to the young lady here. And we're gonna do it that way, okay? Okay, we need a big round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, who's coming? This is a premiere of Loudmouth. And look who's coming. Well, Loudmouth activist Gina Williams. Give her a big round of applause. And she's walking with the Reverend Al Sharpton. Hello? And guess what I want to say? And so why are you a Loudmouth for justice?
I am a Loudmouth for justice because I am standing on the shoulders of our leaders and our founder, Reverend Al Sharpton, in the fight for social, racial equality, and equity in education.
Then step on down. Loudmouth, give her a big round of applause. Come on down, step on down. Step on down, on round to them. Come on around. She's a Loudmouth, everybody. Loudmouth for justice. And here's come another star. She's the star of the Youth Huddle, ladies and gentlemen. Give our youth a hand from the Nan Youth Huddle. Is a Loudmouth for justice. And why? Give us your name. And why are you a Loudmouth for justice? Your name? Okay, I'm gonna have to come up here and do the Wendy Williams thing. Okay, what's your name?
Peyton.
Peyton, and why are you a Loudmouth for justice?
I don't know what to say.
Say what's on your heart. Say what are you fighting? What are you fighting for to be when you grow up? You a Loudmouth for justice because you want to be?
When I grow up, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a doctor when I grow up.
So we're going to do loudmouth. So step on down. Loudmouth for justice. Loudmouth. Loudmouth. Show the poster. Show the poster. There you go. And walk on around. Walk on around. Walk on around. Come on around. Walk on around. Give it to her, darling. Go walk on around. There you go. Walk on around. Okay, now keep walking. Keep walking. Keep walking. Keep walking. Keep walking on around. Huh?
So allow them people to be a doctor.
Oh,
We're fighting for health and wellness.
yes.
To be healthy, to live. So you will be a loudmouth for health. Get it?
There you go. Okay, loudmouth for health and wellness. Go give it to your colleague over there. Okay, you want to try it again? Let's go back up. Cause we just take two. All right, here we just clap it up for our loudmouth for justice. Yeah. And your name is
Peyton.
Peyton. And why are you a loudmouth for justice?
I am a loudmouth for justice because when I grow up, I want to be a doctor for health and wellness.
That sounds like a take. Step on down. We're going around and give it to them. We're going, like I said, we want to see you walk, girl. All right, here you go. Here's our leader, our fearless leader of the Name Youth Huddle. Loudmouth for justice. Loudmouth for justice. Come on down. And you are
Giselle.
And Giselle, why are you a loudmouth for justice and you're walking the House of Justice carpet with Reverend Al Sharpton?
I'm a loudmouth for justice because later on in the year, I'm going to enlist in the military under Navy Nurse Corps, and I genuinely want to help people and get justice.
Loudmouth for justice. Walking with the Reverend Al Sharpton on our brand new carpet, our brand new House of Justice carpet. And here come Gino with the loudmouth for justice signage. So, and coach, give us your full name and why are you a loudmouth for justice?
I'm Gino Myers, and I'm loudmouth for justice for the kids when I grow up.
All right, loudmouth for justice for the kids when you grow up. And so you're a kid now, but you are definitely a loudmouth. Loudmouth, everybody, and that's everybody. Make sure everyone gets a flyer, and make sure you show up and be loud as loud can be. And that's the Nan Arts and Culture segment. Thank you.
Thank you, Arnold Penix. Loudmouth. Y'all was acting like y'all wasn't some loudmouths. I don't know. All right, now I would like to invite up Gino for our membership and text alerts.
Hi, everyone. Is everybody an updated member for the year of 2022? Okay, have you renewed your membership? Yes. Well, if not, this applies to you as well as those who are not members. The best way to stay informed and in the action is to become a member of NAN. Stay informed about NAN events close to where you live. Text justice followed by your state to 59769. I repeat, text justice followed by your state 59769. And don't forget to join us on Saturday at the Reverend Al Sharpton rally.
Thank you, Gino. Okay, so now I would like to open the floor up to good news. Any good news from the weekend, week? Nobody has good news.
My good news is I'm passing all my classes. I'm getting better with my Spanish too. And yeah.
Say something in Spanish.
Huh?
Say something in Spanish.
A mí gustos, that means I like. And corno, it means run. And then ventas, I think it means Thursday, I'm not sure. Friday, yeah.
Hi, everybody, and God bless everybody. And I'm so glad we're here together. My good news is I'm going to be volunteering at the Magic Johnson Movie Theater, passing out flyers and information for the movie Loudmouth. I saw it, and it's a movie that everybody needs to see. That's why I'm talking now. So those of you who are looking online, please share the information. It's a vital documentary of a very important person who's alive and well, thank God, today. And you're really sincerely invited to join National Action Network. God bless y'all. Thank you.
Hello, good evening. I'm Chaplain Jay, and this is an organization that I belong to, Masculine Identified Lesbians of Color Collective, and I'm in September. That's my good news.
Okay, so if that's all, I will end this off with my good news. My good news is that this is my birthday month. My birthday is on the 29th, 4 days after Christmas. Yes, I am God's favorite. Oh, shout out to Marcus Al. We got the same birthday. It's my twin. So now let's get into the did you know, because you may not have known. We're going to start off with Patrice. Ha ha.
Good evening, Huddle family. So as Giselle said, this is a Did You Know? So how many of you have heard of Mayor Adams' new plan for the mentally ill? You heard about it? That's not too many hands. So we're going to talk about it a little bit today. Mayor says NYC will treat mentally ill even if they refuse. New York City Mayor on Tuesday said he was directing police and city medics to be more aggressive about getting severely mental ill people off the streets and subways and into treatment, even if it means involuntarily hospitalizing some people who refuse care. These New Yorkers and hundreds of others like them are in urgent need of treatment, yet often refuse when it's offered, Mayor Adams said at a news conference, noting the problem of mental illness has long been out in the open. No more walking by or just looking away at them, the mayor said, calling it a moral obligation to act. The mayor's directive marks the latest attempt to ease a crisis decades in the making. It will give outreach workers, city hospitals, first responders, police, discretion to hospitalize anyone they deem a danger to themselves or unable to care for themselves. As part of the initiative, the city is developing a phone line that would allow police officers to consult with clinicians. The mayor's announcement was condemned as a wrong-headed by some civil rights groups and advocates for the homeless. The mayor is playing fast and loose with the legal rights of New Yorkers and is not dedicating the resources necessary to address the mental health crisis that affects our communities, said Donna Lieberman, executive director of the New York City Civil Liberties Union. Forcing people into treatment is a failed strategy for connecting people to long-term treatment and care. The Coalition for the Homeless also denounced the mayor's plan, saying the city should focus on expanding access to voluntary psychiatric treatment. The Legal Aid Society, along with several community-based defender services, said the mayor was correct in noting decades of dysfunction in mental health care. They argued that state lawmakers must no longer put the address to crisis and approve legislation that would offer treatment, not jail, for people with mental health issues. Adams has called for an expansion of the use of the 1999's Kendra's Law, which allows courts to order defendants with mental illness to complete treatment. The law was named after Kendrick Webdell, who died after being pushed onto the subway tracks by a man with a history of mental illness. Adams was thrust into the city's mental health crisis when just days after being sworn into office, a woman was shoved in the path of an oncoming train, stoking public concerns over random attacks by people struggling with mental illness and homelessness. The mayor said he has begun deploying teams of clinicians and police officers to patrol the busiest subway stations. The city also was rolling out training to police officers and other first responders to help them provide compassionate care in situations that could cause the involuntary removal of a person showing signs of mental illness in public places. It is not acceptable for us to see someone who clearly needs help and walk past them. A spokesperson for New York Governor Kathy Hochul said the city's plans build a mutual effort to increase capacity at psychiatric hospitals, as well as expand outreach teams in the subway. So I'm in between on this one, but I'll give my thoughts at the end. I just want to hear from some of you who believe that this will work, and some of you who don't believe that this will help us at all. Those of you who believe it will work, come up and talk about it. And those who believe it won't work, let us know why you think so. Just want to hear your thoughts.
Thank you. You know, I just think, first to begin with, Mayor Adams is at least doing the best that he can. And it's not an easy situation to make, what can you do in the best care of people? And I don't think what he's doing is such a bad idea, because sometimes the mental ill people may not feel as though that they need that help. A lot of times, even though they're homeless, they are humans, and they may still feel shame and embarrassed, and people may have treated them bad along the way. Something has to be done. So some aggressiveness, if they not, long as the police are not physically abusing them and mistreating them, or try to darn near kill them, you know, I just think that giving them an opportunity to force them to say, take care of yourself, could be a way to make a start, because no one is doing nothing. They have done nothing to help out a lot of these people, and they have left them astray. I'm not saying, long as it's not being brutality upon that person, but I think they need help. You know, so people are crying out for help and don't know how to go about it.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Let us know your thoughts. Are you for it or against it?
Generally, I am against it. Only because I've resided in this city. I was born in Harlem. And when I see people who are basically considered street people, they really don't bother other people. So I don't know how they're going to determine that they are a danger to themselves and others. You know, and they leave it up to discretion. It's like they could pick up anybody and say that. So what I had thought of in terms of a possible alternative is offer a person who clearly is living on the streets, who may not want to be confined to a hospital and forced to take treatment, but at least offer them a meal, a place to go to clean up, and let them speak with people who obviously will show a real concern for them, and they might decide to willingly get health services, but not necessarily this involuntary confinement type of situation. So I think there's an alternative that the mayor can consider to approach a person with some human decency in terms of their physical well-being, offer them a place to shower, to eat, and then engage in conversation and ask them would they want to continue a lifestyle that obviously will improve their well-being. Anytime it involves police officers, their discretion is really, really chaotic. And anybody who really knows some of the history of some of these really rotten, evil cops may not want to interact with any police officers on that level. And it may get where violence will have to be perpetrated because they've been given permission now to just grab them up, which is basically how I saw it. So again, I'm not for it, but I also understand the mayor wants to help, to the best of his ability. So I hope you're listening, or somebody who knows you is listening. Consider offering the people who are living on the streets a place to eat and to shower and to get some clean items and to get some real therapeutic talk. And maybe they'll be willing once they understand that they won't be harmed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Are you for it or against it?
Right now, presently, I am 100% for it, only because last week on the way to work, there was a homeless person asleep, and another homeless person who appeared definitely to have some mental health issues came through the car with a gas can and was about to pour gasoline on the sleeping person. So myself and two other people shoved him away so he wouldn't pour the gasoline on. The lighter fell, I kicked it, somebody scooped it up, a gentleman got up and kindly took the person with the gas can off the train. So that's why I'm 100% for it. And Sister Word, you're absolutely 100% correct. And right now with the safety injection spots, they do offer meals, they do offer counseling, they do offer fresh clothes and showers. So that has been affected. It's unfortunate that right now, when Mayor Adams came into office, he has so much to clean up because of the pandemic and the aftermath of the pandemic, even though we're still in it. So we have to definitely be 100% supportive, to him in his plight and straightening out the city. The other thing is also that the police definitely need to have some type of extensive training and not the mental health aid training. They need training to be able to identify danger to self and others, because a person's walking down the street talking to themselves doesn't mean that they are a danger to anyone. Because they're sleeping on the street doesn't mean that they are a danger to anyone. But if you see them in an active engagement, you have to make the best assessment to determine if it's a danger to self or others. So right now, that's my feeling. Thank you.
Thank you. Let us know, Mother Cheryl, you for it or against it?
I'm for it because the majority of the things that's happening, excuse me, is the people, when it happens, they say that they have mental problems. I feel if you could get them help before they do these crimes, maybe things will be better. But the way Mayor Adams is going about it, I think is the right way, because he's sending out the right people. He's sending out the health people, social workers. So I think it will work, but we have to give him a chance, because he took on a lot of mess, and it's going to be years before he actually clean. He'll be out of office, and this mess will still be here. But I think he could clean a lot of it up.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you. Are you for it or against it?
I'm for it. And the reason is because every one of us in our life, at some point or another, needed help, didn't know to ask, and then somebody helped us when we wasn't even knowing that we needed the help in the first place. So that's why I am 100% for it. The one piece I'm not 100% for is the police getting them, because the police, they don't have anything called, what do they call it? Customer service skills. They don't know how to take care of us, and they don't realize that everybody is paying them. So they don't realize that, hey, take care of the people that's paying you, for crying freaking out loud. You know what I'm saying? The other part about it is that we don't really know what we don't know we don't know. We know what we know. We have an idea of some of the things that we don't know, but at least we know we don't know it. But the things that we don't even know that we don't know, we don't know. And that's a major part of humanity as a whole. Like, that's how our brain is. But every time we get to know what we don't even know we don't know, that's called an epiphany or a aha moment. And I'm committed that humanity gets in the practice of giving each other and causing aha moments for each other, and starting with the people that Mayor Adams is working for.
Thank you so much. Let us know, are you for it or against it?
I'm for it. I don't drive, so I ride the trains and buses every day, and what I see is horrendous. Sure, we need help. This is maybe the I don't think it's the beginning, because they have been doing things, but this is a step that the mayor is doing, and I'm all for it because I've seen people taking off their clothes in the train. I mean, just come on. All you have seen it. We need help with that. I mean, it's just, I can't even explain it.
Thank you.
I am definitely for it. After spending the whole summer in 2022 in Marcus Garvey Park and seeing the mental illness issues of our homeless and drug addicts, and they also rush onto the train systems as well to sleep at night. So yes, I believe it should be done, but also I believe it should be done with a trained professional to have a checklist in order they can say these are the symptoms and these are the checklists, and then once they go through that complete checklist, then they will approach that person. But basically, it definitely has to be some drastic measures. And sometimes, like I was a television kid, and my father was upset about me watching television all the time, so he pulled me away from that television and made me play football. That was the best thing he could ever done for me. And at the time, I didn't know I wanted to do that, and I didn't want to do that, but I was forced to play football, and I thank my father, God rest his soul, for doing that, because it pulled me away from that television and it got me active, involved in organization and community work building and all that wonderful stuff. So yes, my answer is yes.
Thank you. I love the answers. So far, everybody's with them.
Well, I'm definitely for it. And let me tell you something, give you a little bit of history. Back in the late 50s and going into the 60s, Bellevue Hospital was overrun. They had no place to put mentally ill people. They dispersed them and put them out on the streets, just let them go. So what we did was, we had a project down in Times Square, I was there, and I had a bottle, and I asked for people to bring blankets and to bring, deodorant things. And this was in Times Square, and this was noted, yeah. And so then, and I told people, don't bring no blankets that ain't new. And so we did a blanket project, and that kind of helped the homeless. And then also, we gave like food that could be used and that they could have. Later on, as the mayoral changed, instead of them like taking on projects to help the homeless, they were just doing like what they call trying to put a Band-Aid over a gunshot wound, for lack of a better phrase. And so this is one of the reasons why we have what we have today. And our mayor is doing the best he can under the circumstances of what he inherited. You know? Now, individually, what you can do. Individually, yes. When you see the homeless, if they're asking for something, if you have an apple or orange or candy bar, whatever, give it to them. And don't judge. I'm 84. I get tired of people talking about, I ain't gonna give them nothing. All they're gonna do is drink. But that ain't your business. If you're giving from your heart, what you give out is what you get back in everything that you do. If you do it from your heart, you will be rewarded accordingly. All right. I know. I can stand up here and preach forever.
Well, thank you, Mother. Wait, watch your time. With that closing word, we thank you, and we thank you for everyone's comments. And I'm going to wrap it up with my thoughts. So I believe he's doing a great job. It's a great initiative. But again, I wouldn't involve the police at the first start of the issue. I would make sure that, you have your counselors, you have your social workers. I would educate people on what mental health issues really are. Maybe have someone in the subway stations, on the streets, in front of clinics, and there's a lot of clinics out here. Have them in front with a pamphlet explaining what the mental health issues could be. If you are experiencing these symptoms, A through whatever, then maybe you may want to call this number or go to this clinic, but educate them first as opposed to just forcing people to want to be, because it could be that they have anxiety, they don't like to be around people, or they start getting hyper when they see more people around. You never know, right? So I would think educate them first, and then use the proper professionals. You have social workers, you have counselors, and then if they're not listening to them once they're coming for treatment, then bring it to law enforcement. But automatically bringing in law enforcement for someone who don't really know that they have mental health issues, I don't think that's the right thing to do. So Mayor Adams, thank you for your initiative, but just use the right people, and let's get the people off the street and get them treated like they need to be treated. And again, this wraps up my Did You Know? Thank you.
Thank you, Patrice. Now, I'm gonna do my article. Okay, let's get started. What happened to Tatiana Jefferson as trial begins for Texas police officer Aaron Dean, who shot her in 2019? Opening arguments are underway in the trial of former Fort Worth, Texas police officer Aaron Dean. The 38-year-old is charged with murder for shooting 28-year-old Tatiana Jefferson in 2019, just moments after beginning a non-emergency welfare check at her home. The case involving a white officer and a black victim occurred 7 months before the police killing of George Floyd galvanized nationwide racial justice protests. It touches on many of the same issues that would later bring millions of Americans into the street in 2020. Aggressive police use of force, strained dynamics between white officers and communities of color, and the difficult question of how to best reform police departments in America. Here's what you need to know about Tatiana Jefferson's story. The shooting. Police were called for a welfare check at 2:23 a.m. on the 12th of October, 2019, on a non-emergency line after a neighbor noticed Jefferson's front door was open uncharacteristically for that time of the morning. At the time, Jefferson was playing video games with her 8-year-old nephew, Zion, and had opened the doors to vent smoke from hamburgers she was cooking. Without knocking at the door, turning on their police lights, or otherwise announcing themselves, Dean approached the outside of the home, investigating parked cars and eventually letting himself into the backyard through the gate. There, according to body camera footage, Dean saw Jefferson standing at the back window and yelled, "Put your hands up, show me your hands," before firing a shot through the window moments later. The officer did not identify himself as a policeman. Zion told a forensic investigator trained to work with children that his aunt had heard suspicious noises in the yard, picked up her gun, and went to investigate. Dean claims he saw the silhouette of Jefferson holding a gun with a beam of a green laser sight pointing outside before he shot. Who was Tatiana Jefferson? According to family members, Jefferson, who went by the nickname Tay to those close to her, was a loving relative with big dreams about pursuing a career in medicine. She was part of the first generation of people in my family to go to college, her sister Ashley Carr told the New York Times. There were plenty of days of eating ramen noodles for dinner, but that wasn't a deterrent for her. Just before the shooting, Jefferson put these career ambitions on hold and moved from Dallas to Fort Worth to care for her ailing mother. Whoever she really cared for, she went all in for it, people and animals, Ms. Carr added. The response. Unlike most investigations of police use of force, transparency and punishment, at least at first, arrived swiftly after Jefferson's death. 2 days after the shooting, Dean resigned from the FWPD and was charged with murder. City officials, including the police chief and Fort Worth's Republican mayor, were quick to condemn the violence for shattering community police trust. It is very emotional because the officers tried hard every day to make the city better. They are trying to build these relationships, the interim police chief at the time, Ed Kraus, said. I liken it to an anthill, and somebody comes with a hose and washes it away. The killing, though it didn't receive the kind of nationwide attention that later police slayings would, touched a nerve in the Fort Worth community. For some, Jefferson's shooting was another example of racist state violence in a region of long history of redlining, and a majority white police force overseeing a population that's majority black and Hispanic. Just days before Jefferson was killed, Amber Geiger, a white former officer in nearby Dallas, was sentenced to 10 years for killing Botham Jean, a black man, in his own apartment after the officer mistakenly believed he was an intruder in her home. For others, Jefferson's death and the fact that her name did not seem to join the national conversation of wrongful police killings was an indication of the ways and the experiences of black women are erased. In Fort Worth, protesters pointedly chanted, "Say her name." The families of these women often suffer in relative obscurity. Black feminist legal scholar Kimberly Crenshaw, who created the Say Her Name hashtag, wrote at the time, "Their daughters' deaths don't elicit the marches or news coverage that could catalyze accountability. When most people think about anti-black violence, like lynchings or police killings, they think about men. Women rarely come to mind first." The trial. Despite the unexpectedly swift punishment for Dean, it took more than 3 years for him to head to trial. The case was delayed by legal wrangling, the death of his primary attorney, the removal of the initial judge overseeing the case, and claims from the former officer's team that statements from local officials about the shooting would bias the outcome. Dean, who has pleaded not guilty, claims he reasonably believed he was in danger. Miles Brissett, his attorney, told the court on Monday the house Dean was called to investigate looked like it had been ransacked and that the officer had reason to fear for his safety. "That gun was relevant," Mr. Brissett said. "This is a tragic accident." Critics have argued that Jefferson's killer may not face a competent jury to handle this complex case after the court approved a majority white panel with no black members. After years of delay, the murder trial of the former Fort Worth police officer accused of fatally shooting Atatiana Jefferson in 2019 is underway, civil rights attorney Ben Crump wrote on Twitter on Monday. "Unfortunately, the jury doesn't include a single black juror. I am praying that her family receives a fair and just trial." Observers are worried that even if Dean is convicted, Fort Worth hasn't made any major changes to its policing policies to prevent future tragedies. "I've learned not to expect much from most of Texas, and especially from Fort Worth," Kendra Richardson, founder of a local mutual aid organization, told Al Jazeera. Others are more hopeful the death of Jefferson will inspire positive change. "You, my dear, have indeed changed the world by your sacrificial love, unbridled work ethic, and enduring legacy that is yet to unfold," Jefferson's mother wrote in a message read at her eulogy. So that concludes my Did You Know? I didn't have a question. I just wanted y'all to come up and voice y'all opinions on the article. But if nobody wants to come up, Sister Word.
Yeah, thank you for the article. And when I was listening, I thought about what they call this a wellness check. And the reason for it was because her door was open. So the police officer could have simply knocked and called her, "Miss Jefferson, you all right?" He didn't use his voice at all. It was like he was just prowling around, expecting to shoot at something that would unexpectedly move in somebody else's house. So I hope he's found, or it's a woman or whoever this cop is, I hope they're found guilty. I hope the jury is fair and rational in their thinking, keep race out of it, keep professionalism high on notice in terms of what expectations are. Also, in some way, put themselves in that situation. If their door was open, would they want somebody to knock and call their name to find out if they're okay? So I hope things go well with this whole situation. And you're absolutely correct. Most of the men who were violently killed by cops, there's a lot of demonstration. Fortunately, we're getting better because the information is being more exposed. But usually the scenarios that involve black men is highly publicized. We very rarely know about women and black women in particular who are killed by cops. But, you know, again, fortunately, the internet is being widely used on that subject, and we just have to stay in tune. Stay tuned. The National Action Network will definitely inform us of certain stories, which I will highly appreciate. And thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you. Okay, so final thoughts since nobody else came up. He's guilty because as a police officer, there are certain policies that you have to participate in before you even go inside somebody's house. You have to announce that you're a police officer, because how else would the person know who you are? You have to, first of all, it's a wellness check. So knocking on the front door would have been the appropriate way to go about this. Second, he said that he feared for his life because he's seen her like silhouette with a gun, but you don't even know if she's an intruder first. This is her protecting her home and the young child that she has in her home. So he's guilty, and I hope that despite his race, this evidence and these facts doesn't go unnoticed because he's a white male. But we'll see. We'll keep watching this. So now I would like to call up Miss Ashley Sharpton for our third Did You Know?
Thank you, Giselle. I'm back. Okay, the article I'll be reading tonight is more informative. It's entitled Teens' Brains Aged Faster During the First Year of the Pandemic, study says, and stress may be to blame. So I'm going to read everything, and then there's some action steps for those who may need some of this information. I welcome anyone there is no question like Giselle's, but I welcome if you have any feedback or commentary, you can come share. If not, I'll be back in my seat. All right, this is from CNN, written by Jen Christensen. The brains of United States teenagers have physically changed during the COVID-19 pandemic, aging faster than normal, a new study says. The young study participants also reported more severe symptoms of anxiety, depression, and what scientists call internalized problems, meaning feelings of sadness, low self-esteem, and fear, also trouble regulating their emotions after the first year of the pandemic. So that's 2020, 2021. Dozens of studies have found that teens and adolescents' mental health has suffered during the pandemic. They have been taken out of school, away from their friends and familiar support structures, and had to live with the uncertainty and fear that came with the coronavirus. Many parents lost their jobs. Millions of children lost parents and grandparents from COVID-19. The study published Thursday in the journal Biological Psychiatry, Global Open Science, is one of the first to look at the physical changes in the brain brought by the stress and anxiety. The research comes out of a larger study in which scientists were trying to understand the gender differences in depression among adolescents. 8 years ago, they set out with the plan to take MRI scans of 220 children ages 9 to 13 every 2 years. The team had completed 2 sets of scans when the pandemic interrupted their research, and they weren't able to start scanning again until the end of 2020. When their research was interrupted, the team decided it would be interesting to study the effects that this stressful event was having on kids' developing brains. The pre-pandemic scans would help make them the comparison. The researchers matched children in the same demographics, including gender, age, exposure to stress, and socioeconomic statuses. To find the average brain age, they put the MRI scans through a model that pulls data from other scans. The researchers compared the MRI scans of 128 children. Half of the scans were taken before the pandemic and the other half at the end of 2020. They found that the children who had lived through the first year of the pandemic had brains that aged older than their chronological age. The brains that had gone through the beginning of the pandemic had a growth in the area that can help regulate fear and stress, called the, I might say this wrong, amygdala, and in the hippocampus, the area of the brain that can control access to memories. So there was growth in the part of the brain that helps regulate fear and stress, and there was also more growth in the area that controls memories. tissues had then in the part of the brain that controls executive functioning, which is the cortex, which is very important in development. A child's brain changes naturally over time, but research has found that these physical changes can speed up when a person goes through significant adversity in childhood. Studies have shown that people who are exposed to violence, neglect, poverty, and familiar problems early in life have faster brain aging and can have problems with their mental health later on. Ian Gottlieb, lead author of the new study, said that the research team had expected to find the problems with anxiety, depression, and internalized problems. The pandemic has not been kind to adolescent mental health, a psychological professor at Stanford University reports. But they weren't exactly sure what they would find with MRI scans. It's always interesting to do research like this. These effects were interesting and happened pretty quickly. This was just a one-year shutdown, so we didn't know that the effects on the brain would be this pronounced after just one short period of stress. He added, it tracks with the mental health difficulties that we are seeing. What isn't clear is whether the brain changes will have an impact later in life. The research team plans to scan the same children later to track their brain development. There is a chance that their brain changes could have just been an immediate response to a stressor that will normalize over time. How to get help. Help is there if you or someone you know is struggling with suicidal thoughts or mental health matters. In the US, you can call, anybody know the number? We shared it earlier this year. Okay, you can call 988. Yeah. It's a suicide and crisis lifeline, 988, again. And globally, the International Association for Suicide Prevention and Befrienders Worldwide have contact information for crisis centers around the world. The team also plans to look at the 10 children in the study who had COVID-19 to see whether there's a different effect. The physical differences seem to be a little more pronounced in the children who actually had COVID. And it goes on to say more things. But for me, why I felt this was important to share or to include in the Did You Know articles was because I feel like I hear a lot, because Marcus Al was born in the beginning of the pandemic, and it's a lot of younger, like toddlers and babies. You hear them called pandemic babies, and it's like they have different development skills. Their motor skills are different. They move differently. But I also, it's like, it's not just the babies. Like I feel like all of us, not just the children, adults, we all were impacted greatly by the pandemic. And I feel, even though we're kind of out of it, we're still in it. Like we're still suffering from the changes in America, well, in the globe. I don't even think we understand how greatly we've been impacted mentally, physically, and spiritually from the pandemic. But children who are in development during that time, even our young people who went to college, who basically had to stay home and not interact and not even get the full college experience. Everyone has changed. So I think that I know that's not this is not like a doctoral analysis or anything, but just be kinder, be more patient when you're talking to people, not just young people, adults as well, because you don't know who's suffering, you don't know what they're suffering from, you don't know what they've been exposed to, and they might not be aware at all that something is even wrong, honestly, or that they're experiencing something. But this is important to understand. Our teenagers, since we're dealing with young people, they're stressed, and their brains are aging because they're stressed. So let's help to stop causing this stress and help to assist them more in whatever they're going through. And if you guys need us, we're here to help you. Y'all are not necessarily teens yet. Well, you're like right there, preteen. But we're here. We're here to help, and parents as well. We're here to help you all too, because you have your teen stressed, and then you're stressed, and that's not good for anyone. All right? We love you.
Thank you, Ashley. Now I would like to call up Trey for our last Did You Know segment.
All right. Bringing it on home. So earlier we talked about Georgia's Senate runoff race. It's a couple of things happening. So under Georgia law, public colleges and university students can use their student ID to vote, but those at private schools, including 7 out of 10 HBCUs, cannot. Interesting, right? So we're going to dip down into this. So activists had rallied outside of Atlanta, or actually at a polling site in Atlanta on November 8th, right around the midterm elections. As we know, in case you don't know, the midterm elections for the Georgia race is in a runoff between Raphael Warnock, the incumbent senator, and Herschel Walker, the Republican nominee. So our story starts when Lauren Nix, a a senior at Spelman College in Atlanta, cast her vote in last month's midterms. She did so in her home state of New York, here, New York City. Nix, a 21-year-old international studies major at the historically black college, had been told months earlier by fellow students about a law that does not allow students from private colleges and universities in the state to use their school ID as identification to vote, a rule she believed would prevent her from casting a ballot in Georgia. As a result, she wasn't able to vote for her preferred candidate, Democratic nominees and incumbent Senator Raphael Warnock in November, or in next week's runoff election either. Actually, it will be this week. You can't use that Spelman ID, she said in a recent interview. I just thought I wasn't eligible. Her confusion from a 16-year-old provision in Georgia voting law in which only IDs from state schools, not private schools, are considered an acceptable form of voter ID. It's a provision that voting rights experts say continues to confuse voters, especially college students or others who barely face barriers as a result in many of them voting elsewhere or not at all. Furthermore, they argue it has a disproportionate impact on student voters of color because, again, 7 out of the 10 HBCUs in the state of Georgia are private institutions, including Spelman College. Nix could have brought in another form of identification to vote. Under Georgia law, and this is where it gets very important in states like this, her passport or her New York State identification would have sufficed. Or, for example, but she didn't know that, which many college students didn't. Nix said she didn't want to risk not being able to vote, so she simply did what a lot of other voters did, remained registered in her home state, and in this case, her home state of New York, and voted with an absentee ballot. Students in general often have a more difficult time assessing the ballot box because all sorts of things. For example, their addresses are often changed. Voters of color face barriers to the ballot box as well, so when you make that overlap, you're making it even harder for a subset of voters for whom it's already quite difficult to cast a ballot. Another senior voting rights attorney, Raul Gabadov, I apologize if I butchered his name, who works at the American Civil Liberties Union said, there are about 157,000 registered Georgia voters who do not have an ID number on file with the Secretary of State's office, according to Vote Riders, a nonpartisan nonprofit organization in advocacy for voters who live in states since voter ID laws. The Office of Georgia Secretary of State confirmed the number. There are about 10,000 students enrolled at private HBCUs across the state of Georgia. Why that is important, because folks like Miss Nix, who turned around and figured she could have just simply used the passport or her New York ID to register and go vote in Georgia, but instead of her not knowing that, she decided to stay registered in New York. Why is that important? Margin of victory. These little margins that we talk about, every election counts. I want to say the Warnock race is within 10,000 votes. So if you apply that same, practice here, if all those students at the HBCUs could vote, I'm not saying hypothetically they will all vote for Warnock, but given how close the race is, that could not only make a difference in the Warnock race, that also could make a difference in the Stacey Abrams race. But it's little information like that that our local chapter in Georgia and Atlanta, I think that they should, not that I think, it will be best if they can help disseminate this little bit of information out to the college students, because the difference between going to a Morehouse and a Spelman, they're private HBCUs, but Clark Atlanta is not. It's public. So the Clark Atlanta students could go and vote and use it, but right across the street, Morehouse and Spelman cannot. See the difference? Very big difference. So, but given how close major races in the state have been over the past 2 election cycles, they have empathized that any impact the law has could affect the outcome of any race. Take a look at any recent Georgia election and you'll see that every vote really matters to the outcome there right on. The margins are exceptionally thin. Danielle Langs, the senior director of the voting rights unit at the Campaign Legal Center, said, another nonprofit voting watchdog group. So in a race like this, making sure that access is broad and possible, and as broad as possible, is essential to make sure the results reflect the desire of Georgia voters. The provision in question stems from a state 2006 voter ID law. It's been amended several times, but the law continues to require that to cast a ballot, voters must present a Georgia driver's license, a driver's license or identification card from another state, a Georgia voter ID card, a passport, a government employee ID, a military identification, or tribal identification card, or any identification card issued by any branch, department, agency, or entity of the state of Georgia. You do not need a combination of all those things, just to make it clear, but any one of those things would suffice. So you don't need all of those, you just need one. But if you're a college student, likely if you're a freshman or sophomore, you may not have a passport. That's one. If you come from New York and you go to school in Georgia, chances are you still have your New York ID. Maybe, maybe not, because up here we have mass transit. We're not getting driver's licenses at 19 and 20, typically. But if you don't have that, what is your alternative? So parents, for those of you who have kids going to school out of state, if they're not gonna get a driver's license, at least make sure that they get a state ID. Because depending on where they go to college, that might come in handy when they go vote, especially if they go down south to vote. So at least have something, but we'll get into all of that shortly. The last category includes public universities and college, but not the private ones. The provision is not a part of the SB 202, the 2001 Georgia election law that we talked about previously. Yes, it's Christmas. That introduced a series of new rules and restrictions on voting, including having cut in half the time allowed between a general election and a runoff election, which drastically shortened the period during which many voters must request, receive, and cast ballots. SB 202 also required voters casting mail-in ballots to include their driver license identification number or other documentary proof of identity with the application and ballot. Students at private colleges and universities in Georgia who cast a mail-in ballot in 2022 would have to submit a different form of ID with their application and ballot. That's another critical piece of information. You know, when you request the absentee, unlike here in New York, you just get the absentee form, fill it out, who you want, boom. Georgia, it's a little more complex. That same form, a voter ID number or whatever, and identification, and that's it. This provision isn't even part of the SB 202, but all these laws kinds of interact with each other and have a cumulative impact. So when you stack them up, they often end up having a noticeable disenfranchising effect in the broad picture, according to another ACLU member. He also noted that several states, including Wisconsin and Alabama, have either amended existing voter ID laws or issued new guidance in how to interpret them to allow school IDs from private colleges and universities as an acceptable form of ID to vote. Defenders of this provision, including the Office of the Georgia Secretary of State, which oversees elections in Georgia and is one of the several bodies that enforces such voting laws, told NBC News that government-issued identification, including those issued by State University, remained more sound than any other form of ID and suggest it would not be difficult for students who want to vote in Georgia to simply obtain other acceptable forms of identification. Government identification is definition issued by government agencies. That's the critical part. So I know here in New York City, you have that New York City identification card that you can get at a library. That wouldn't count as a state ID. But if you go to the DMV and get one of those, the ID, state ID, that's what they're referring to kind of put it in a New York jargon. Another spokesman for the office did not respond directly. Oh, wait, I want to read that. Here's an attempt to educate student voters, to prepare students who may have been otherwise unexpectedly encountered the rule at a polling place. Groups like Vote Riders put boots on the ground in the months ahead of the general election. The group has remained active in the weeks since, working to make sure that students, particularly at the private HBCUs, who are already registered to vote, know what documents they must bring if they vote in person in tomorrow's Senate runoff, and to remind them they can ask for provisional ballots if obstacles arise. So again, if you're having issues in the state of Georgia to vote at a polling site with ID, you can ask for a provisional ballot. Ask for a provisional ballot, and that will be supplied to you. You have a lot of students who come from cities like Philadelphia or New York, and they never needed a driver's license or had a state ID in their state, said Sylvester Johnson, an Atlanta area organizer with the group. He noted that the only form of photo ID some he talked to with various Atlanta campuses currently had was their student ID from the private HBCU, which they were enrolled in, much like Miss Nix. These are the kind of students who are affected, because these students, who could have in turn been Georgia registered voters, are staying home to their home state rather than going through this long, drawn-out process, tedious process to get ID numbers and all that, compounded onto the fact that they're in school, they're not from Georgia, there's no 2 train there to take them to whatever DMV and all that. So these are the stuff that, obstacles. Johnson and his team of volunteers have been combining the 7 private HBCU campuses across the state in recent weeks, reminded students what they must bring when they cast the ballot in person. One voter, such as Ilon Gibson, said he too was organizing his friends and classmates. I got my driver's license when I was 16, but there are so many people I run into that don't have one. A lot of students don't drive, don't have passport, it's a problem, said the 20-year-old junior at Morehouse in Atlanta, who was originally from Montgomery, Alabama. I've seen it firsthand. You hear people saying they want to vote, they want to be involved, but they don't know if they are even allowed to vote, he added. It discourages them from even showing up. And that is actually the end of the article. I didn't have a question because this was more so of a informative and an action alert, especially for our Georgia leadership and Georgia connections and all that. I know Felivi, Vardo, and all of them are down there in Atlanta. So if the Atlanta, folks can kind of get together and help share some of this information with the voting laws and what's needed with the voter ID in the state of Georgia, that would be a huge, huge help, not just for this election, but elections moving forward, because I said 10,000 roughly HBCU students across the state of Georgia, and that's more than enough to kind of influence how the elections are ran in the state of Georgia and determine the outcome. So for those of you who do have comments regarding the article, you're more than welcome to come up with suggestions or ideas or call to action. That's just the word.
Yeah, I'm full of opinions. Every time I learn something from these articles. So while he was reading, the one thing I did not hear is the HBCU administrators of these private HBCUs. They know what's going on. They know what the qualifications are. So they should make that a priority, particularly in Georgia, where there's so much voting rights restrictions happening. So I believe that the HBCU private colleges administrators have the obligation to inform every student who's eligible to vote what they need in the state of Georgia to vote. I also know that in New York State, a person can get a non-driver's license ID, so they don't have to go through the driving license and the rest of that. I have a non-driver's license, state ID. So that's something that could be also a qualified piece of ID for people who don't want to get a driver's license, but they're going to need a state ID. How about a state non-driver's ID? That will make it easier. But I really believe the burden is on the HBCU private administrators to inform every student upon admission and throughout the school semester to make sure everybody has what they need, those who are eligible to vote and want to vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Word.
Okay. As I'm listening to this, I'm remembering something that I learned in one of my earlier careers. I've had a few careers. I was in dispatching, messaging, and then I was in sales, and now I'm in coaching and courses. So, but I was in sales, and I was selling cars in Jersey City from 94 to 98. And while I was there, they used to teach me all kind of stuff. One of the things they said was, the headline giveth, but the small print taketh away. Ooh. So I had to be responsible. My mom had cancer. She passed away in July of 98. And she was a teacher. She worked, she was under the teacher's insurance department. And she had told me and my sister about a year and a half ago that she was going to have money for us, which I was honored about and happy about, but at the same time I was heartbroken because that's the way I had to get it. She had to die for me to get it, right? So, but I was like, you is not going to not get me this money. So for 6 months, they was busting my chops, talking about, no, we don't know, sorry, talk to the hand, all of that, right? So finally I said, can I get your policies and procedures manual? He sent it to me because I figured, what the heck? And I found out that they was BSing me because if she had passed away 2 weeks later, I wouldn't have been, we would have been eligible. But she was within 2 weeks of the eligibility thing. And when I told them that, they said, okay, let me talk to the boss. And then a couple of days later, okay, we'll send you a check at the end of the month. So from that point forward, you can't get away with like not knowing the details, at least around Tony Veer. You ain't getting away with that because you gotta know what's going on because they don't want you to know what they don't want you to know so they can keep control of it and they could act like they don't have to take responsibility for hiding it from you because you don't know. So no, from now on, the headline giveth, the small print taketh away. Don't let anybody get away with that crap around you. And that's what I got.
Thank you, brother.
What we have to realize that the GOP party is doing everything that they can that black folks won't vote, okay? The Republican Party, they have tried to redistrict people. They have tried to not get information out. They have tried to make it so difficult for us to vote continuously. And we have to understand that we have to start plotting like they plot. They plot continuously to take away our rights, to try to destroy us. And they realize and recognize there's a whole Gen Z crowd that's coming up, the future kids. They're more savvy, they're stronger, they're full of a lot of knowledge, especially with the technology, and they're in massive. So they're trying to do everything they can do to deny us, redistrict us, pull us away from having our voices being heard and having our opinion out there. So we need to really watch the plot that the Republican parties, because they can't win on just people coming out, because nobody basically vote for Republican anymore, except for hateful, racist people. And I'm gonna keep it real, okay? So most of the people would like to vote Democrats because Democrats get things done. Okay? Democrats are about social issues. They're about what's going on in our world. They're about improving. It blows me when I hear the Republican Party talks, and especially Kevin McCarthy wants to be Speaker of the House, and all they're talking about is pulling back off the things that we're making strive to do. So my question to a lot of Republican parties, okay, when you want to take away what the Democrats do, what do you have in place to do? What are you supplementing that you're going to pull away? What are you putting in position when you're pulling out a position of something? So to me, the Republican Party, they full of such crap. They should be called a bull crap party, more so than a party that's being involved. And and a lot of them, especially people like Marjorie Greene Taylor, she's a Nimrod. I wish she would walk the streets of New York one day instead of with all her mouth threatening people in Congress and in the Senate. Most of these people, if they want to, like say for instance, the Republican Party wants to they're going to be taking back the House. They want to talk about Hunter Biden and things of the past. Nobody cares about what Hunter Biden did way back then. We want to deal with what's doing now. And if they're going to be investigating previous things, like trying to keep this orange man back in power, let that, whatever they're going to use to investigate people, let it come out of their pockets, not the people pockets, when they're going to be doing all these investigations. I'm just saying.
Thank you, sister.
Yes, that was very strong and powerful. So I just wanted to share something. I'm a proud mom of a HBU graduate from Howard University. And also my daughter went through ROTC to help pay for Howard, and she was made a battle captain forthwith after, she graduated. But I do want to say this, is that while she was there in her freshman year, the presidential election was coming up. And I am very political. So I called her immediately. Mimi, did you register to vote? Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And she was all over the place. And she was like, Mom, there's so much going on freshman year. I don't know what they're doing here. And I said, okay, I'm going to solve this problem for you. I'm going to mail you an absentee ballot. However, what I should have done was I should have did my further investigation for her and insisted that she go through the steps in Washington, D.C. However, she ended up voting by absentee ballot here in New York because, at the time, that's a huge election, and I just thought that that was, the better outcome. But looking back now, it really wasn't, because she ended up staying in Washington, D.C. after graduating and never returned back to New York. Well, we were living in First Virginia. She never returned back to New York, right? But which is what we want our children to do, go to school or whatever they're going to do and fly out the nest and be independent. So that was a job well done. Thank you, Michelle, for that. But I just wanted to share that. So it is important that we encourage even our relatives that are in school and they're in southern states, that they hurry up and they find out the process, especially since we know that we want to have a presidential election coming up very soon. That's all I want to share.
Thank you so much, Gina. All right, so to wrap this up, there's a couple of things that this article didn't talk about. So a lot of you have this perception that young people don't do this, young people, blah, 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 right? So just so we are aware, it was the Gen Zs who had a big outcome and impact on this past midterm election. So I want to give a shout out to the Gen Zs. So this is the National Youth Huddle. So shout out to the Gen Zs and the younger millennials. They did show up and show out, despite some of you may saying that they don't do nothing, because they did. Just word on the street. So to give you another statistic on this Georgia runoff election, Georgia runoff, early voting has actually set some records. As of Friday, we are about north of 352,000 that have already casted their votes for the state of Georgia. 352. That was as of Friday closing of the polls, which was the last day for the early voting. And once again, for those of you who are registered and haven't had the chance in the state of Georgia, your runoff race is tomorrow. So please, please, please vote, vote, vote. And I wish you all the very best. And that concludes my Did You Know? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Trey. That was the last of our Did You Knows. So I'm going to do a very brief prayer to close us out. I need everybody to bow their heads. Dear God, I hope everybody gets home safely today when they leave our sanctuary. I hope everybody enjoyed Huddle, and I hope we get some more new people into Huddle. I pray for the youth. Holidays is this month. Hope they get everything that they wanted. And safe travels. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, you can go.